Hey there, Fit Fam. Welcome to the only podcast where we're breaking the mold and rewriting the rules. I'm here to debunk the myths, spill the tea, and serve a hefty dose of reality. No matter where you're at in your journey, we've got something for everybody. So buckle up because we're about to unleash the basics in the most unapologetic way possible. From shedding pounds to embracing your inner badass, I'm here to remind you that skinny is so last season and the basics are anything but boring. So grab your favorite piece of protein and your water bottle and get ready to be empowered, entertained, and educated because being a basics bitch has never looked this good. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Call Me Skinny. Super excited to be here with you today as every day because every day is a great day for a hump, and I release these on hump days, so every day is a great day for a hump. But you guys, I'm so excited because I have this amazing guest with me today. I'm so excited. We had to stop talking to get onto the podcast, essentially, is what ended up happening. And I'd heard about her, and we were actually, if you are local to me, we are actually speaking together at an event, October, I think it's 19th, right? Yeah. I keep wanting to say 18th, I don't know why. October 19th, and it's called Fire and Ice. And she's going to be talking about one piece of health and wellness and what we're talking about. And I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different. But I'm so excited. Sarah Johnston, thank you so much for coming on with me today because people are ready to get blown away. I'm so excited to have you here.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So obviously I'm just going to have you do a little intro if you want to tell the people who you are, where you came from, how you got here, what you do, and all the great things.
Absolutely. So I am from Hastings, Michigan, the west side of the state. We just chatted a little bit about that. And my background is in playing and coaching college tennis. I was also a health and wellness professor at Kalamazoo College. And I have 5 kiddos. So my kiddos are 21, 20, and 16-year-old boys and twin girls that are in high school as well. So high school and college age kiddos. And with my background being in tennis, playing and coaching college tennis, and then all of my 5 kiddos played travel sports growing up, I could see one thing over the course of teaching health and wellness that was so important when it was coming to the topic of leveling up in your sport, which was confidence and stress relief. So I dove into mental performance coaching for athletes and started my own company. I'm the owner and founder of Sarah Jane Mindset Coaching. So I created programs for athletes 8 all the way up through professional to practice with confidence and self-belief, focus, motivation, pressure, and what I think is the most important is stress relief or how we respond to failure. And so this is really important and really close to my heart because I wish I would have had someone to talk to about these topics when I was playing college tennis. And now it's becoming a regular part of practice, which is super cool. I work one-on-one with people. I work with teams, lots and lots of baseball, football, golf, tennis, sports I've never even heard of, which then bled into me becoming a mental health coach at Lyra Health. So in addition to my company, I also work as a tenured mental health coach at Lyra, and I get to work with all types of people from cashiers at Walmart to bigwigs at Amazon, Meta, and Google.
It's wild.
Same topics though, like confidence and stress relief, because we're human and we need that.
Yeah. So number 1, super cool. And 2, how did you get into this space? How did you go from being a player to becoming more of on the, I don't want to say kind of behind the scenes, but really you're the back end of what people actually see athletes do?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think having the experience going through it myself, I really knew how important it was. But I was also USPTA certified tennis pro for 20 years. And so I was private coaching a lot of kids. They were getting into tournament play and then getting recruited to play college tennis. So there was a high level of pressure and people are always looking for the best way to level up. And I feel like over the past 10 years, we've started to learn a lot about our brain and how things work and how we can really access, it got to the point where everyone's doing the workouts and everyone's taking the lessons. So how can we level up and how can we the most important thing to me is how can we enjoy the process of leveling up so that it has longevity and that we just enjoy the moments that we're playing our sport and working through all the things.
Yeah. And that's like across the board, even I would say the Gen Pop people that I work with, it's like, we always talk about like, enjoy the process. Everybody sees, getting healthy or working on their mindset or whatever. It's like, oh, it's so exhausting and it's so taxing, but it's also like so revitalizing and so like, I don't know. It's like just kind of unearthing a little bit, like this piece of you that you never really knew existed. I'm curious when you say, confidence. Let's talk about how do you define confidence? What do you think that is? And how do you think like people, when we talk about confidence, it's like, oh, I don't have any confidence, or I need to get confidence, or like, how does one acquire this?
Yeah. So the biggest thing in my world is that, and I work with lots of sports parents too, that say, they're like, just be confident. And we as coaches say, just be confident. And the problem is we don't know why we're not confident and we don't know how to fix it. So what I really made my big passion piece is like figuring out the process of really learning why each individual person is not feeling confident in those moments, because everyone's different and everyone has different experiences and what they've been through and reasons that they don't feel confident. So, for example, if I'm talking to an athlete or a teen and I say, the philosophy that I teach is our thinking creates our feelings and our feelings fuel all the action steps that we take and ultimately the experience that we have. So what is a big pressured thought in your thought bubble? Like if we have a clear cloud where our thought bubble would be, those are the days we feel like things flow really well and things feel like we have clarity about our next best move. But what thought is jumping into that clear cloud that's like stirring or revving or filling up some of your bandwidth? And so it could be lots of different things like, I don't want to let my parents down. I don't want to let my teammates down. I don't know if people are judging the way my skill level looks. I don't know if people are judging the way I look. So, three of the most common fears are fear of the unknown, fear of failure, and fear of judgment. So all these different thoughts can jump into our thought bubble and start to rev or stir. And then our bandwidth just feels full. And of course, we're not going to be able to move forward and execute performing at our peak when we feel like we have full bandwidth. So the next big piece is, well, how in the world, when you start to figure out what's in there, how do you move through it and how do you start to work on fixing it? So I always say that noticing what we're spending that thinking time on is our superpower. Like step one, we might take the first few days and just start to notice our thought train. So I picture a goofy little train emoji going down a track, collecting all of our thoughts and taking us to the experience that we have. And once we start to notice what we're spending thinking time on, then it starts to feel like, oh, we're not always just going on autopilot and thoughts and feelings are happening to us, but we can start to notice what we're spending time on. And although I don't like to say we can control what we think because we're human, so we're going to have negative thoughts that pop up.
Yeah.
But we can make a choice about what we want to spend time on. So if we notice it, I like a line of questioning for breaking up and challenging this thought trap next. And then we support ourselves next with what we know is going to be helpful for us in the moment. And that's different for all of us too. Yeah. So this is a really custom approach to working through confidence.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. So, and one thing when you're talking about, remind me, because I had the word and then I lost the word. You're talking about filling up the bubble and what do you call that?
Bandwidth.
Bandwidth. Okay. So I use the word capacity. So
cool.
When I talk about capacity and she's talking about bandwidth, we're talking about the same exact thing. When you get home from like we were talking about our capacity of the day today,
yeah,
and how it's been hectic and chaotic, right? And I would say that after hearing what your day is like and a little bit about what my day is like, our capacity is pretty full, AKA your bandwidth, right? The space is full. How do you then figure out what's happening and how do you maneuver through those things, right? And then also she talks about like noticing. I always talk about awareness. You can't do or change anything until you are aware of what is happening, right? It's
100%.
Yeah, exactly. So understand like same topics, same concepts, different verbiage that's being used, but same ideas. Like it's the same thought process that's behind it. That's crazy. Let's talk about those fears you talked about, right? You said there's 3 most common fears. What are they again?
They are fear of the unknown, fear of failure, and fear of judgment.
Yeah.
And there can be lots of variations on these, but those are pretty common overarching umbrellas. And I mean, lots of different things come up with teens and my athletes that I work with, of course, every single day. So what's cool about the work is that once you start to be able to notice and challenge and support yourself in your thought train, you can use that set of skills for relationships, friend groups, bosses that you might have, all different types of big tests that you might come up. So when I say that confidence and stress relief are kind of on opposite ends, but equally as important, when all these different topics come up, we figure out what's taking us away from feeling confident. We figure out how to support ourselves through that. And that's when the concept of kind of affirmations comes up. And I always say, affirmations don't work unless your brain and body believe them. So I really like to meet people where they are, even if it's, I trust that I'm taking steps to learn new skills to work through my stress.
Yeah. Yeah. And I call it building a toolbox. It's the same, like, so we build a toolbox for stress. Like, what can we do? I talked about that on a one-on-one check-in today. It's like, instead of turning to the food, what stress toolbox, what can we put in our toolbox and then start utilizing, right? And a lot of that comes down to, am I even aware in the moment that I'm turning to food? Am I even aware that I'm turning to this other thing that is then preventing me from reaching or leveling up and reaching the goal that I want to achieve? How do I then start implementing, right? Would you say that, which part do you think is, even for teens or teen parents, or how, like, do you think that the awareness piece is hard? Do you think that the implementation of it is difficult? Do you think it's like a combination that makes it a little bit hard?
I think that the idea, just because we've been walking through the day on autopilot for so long, at first, noticing, it really is the process of kind of, once you start to notice what you're spending thinking time on, definitely giving yourself a ton of grace and not beating yourself up for, our brain likes to work efficiently. So it's offering us thoughts that it's thought before, because that's the way it likes to work. It likes to keep us safe. So when we start to notice, a key piece is giving ourselves a lot of grace that we have been spending a lot of time on things that didn't serve us. And then once you start to notice and you're able to talk yourself through with support, it really does help you start to feel better, which totally changes your action piece. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I love to remind clients is that when you're taking an action piece from a place of thinking and feeling, I'm whole and my worth is always here no matter what my results are. I'm thinking I'm whole, I'm feeling I'm whole and I'm worthy. And then the action that I take is completely different than when I'm thinking I'm broken and I need to be fixed. And I always say, we don't need to be fixed. We're not furniture. Because you can tell when you spend a lot of time thinking I'm broken, then your action piece is feeling like you have to catch up and fix yourself. And that is not a good place to focus, especially with that piece and then the results piece, because it's taking us out of the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, even questioning the fact that, oh, I'm broken, I need to be fixed. And then the question becomes, can I even be fixed? And
exactly.
It starts to head into a place of, is this even possible? Not even just like, now I have to be fixed. It's, can I even be fixed? And that creates a whole different kind of set of other issues that'll arise. Yeah. That's so crazy.
Exactly. So yeah, you can tell how powerful noticing then is, shifting it, even if it's I'm safe, I'm practicing skills, I'm working toward where I want to go with XYZ, coming up with a structured plan, being accountable for implementing it. I'm sure you do that with all of the people that you work with too.
Yep.
So it's a really beautiful process.
Yeah. What would you say the accountability piece? How would you say that? How important is that?
I think it's so important because feeling like you have a team, like I find myself saying sometimes, borrow pieces of my belief in you if you need to, and I just feel like not only are we coming up with this plan together and you feel like you have someone on your team, but you feel this big sense of belief. And you also have this safe, neutral space to talk about your thoughts and feelings, where it's not always a perfect scene to necessarily talk to your parents or your coaches, because, like my kiddos, I have them talk to other people because they don't always want to tell us. They've been hearing us forever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to have this neutral, safe voice that also has this enormous amount of belief in you. Mm-hmm. So being accountable with someone like that can be game changing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I often talk about, in the space that I work with, and it's probably a little bit different for teens, but in the space that I work in, it's a lot of, well, I know what to do. I just need to do it. And so even your athletes might know what to do. They just need to execute, but I look at when you're looking at mainstream athletes, and I'm talking people like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I'm just using these people because they're coming. It's football season, right? So it's just just coming to my brain right now. And you're looking at high level people like that. I mean, even Kobe Bryant had a mentor. So many of these high level athletes who it's like they don't need to be coached. They are phenomenal players, right?
Yeah.
But the accountability piece is always going to be a thing where it's like, that's so wonderful that you want to do XYZ or become XYZ or train for XYZ. But if you were able to be accountable to if we all could be accountable to ourselves, we really wouldn't need anybody.
Right.
We could live lone ranger lives,
Exactly. And you can tell how helpful that's been for those athletes too, because you see them doing similar things. You see them doing the breathing, and you see them softening the failure piece. So, when we see these athletes deep breathing now on TV all the time, before games, during games, after games, their performance coaches now are on the field with them a lot of the time. So just for a couple seconds talking about that stress relief piece, we used to say, I call what I work with kids is the healthy way to suck it up. Because it used to be suck it up, don't show emotion. And now we know that acknowledging the feeling is very powerful. And this can be done with practice pretty quickly if you're competing in the moment. So I call it feel, manage, release. So feeling the feeling, hey, this stinks. I worked really hard on this and it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Managing it. Some of my kiddos pick a mindful breath. Some pick a reset button, some pick surfing the moment. So it's whatever works best with their personality. But just having a plan for that stress relief when they're in big moments in sports or life is huge, because then you don't feel like you're being sent in without a plan. So that's another kind of piece of this accountability is just in toolbox, feeling like you're equipped to manage not only the good things that come up, but the tough things that come up is a huge deal.
Yeah. And a lot of things, so many things stand out in that moment when you're talking about those pieces. I feel like we are a generation now of a lot of suck it ups, and which is fine. And I can see that to an extent, where that can be beneficial in life, but also we're also a generation that doesn't like to talk about our feelings. We don't acknowledge that they exist. We put up walls, we shut down, all because of the suck it up part. Don't cry. You're not allowed to have emotions. And I've seen some people pretty close to me, even who parent their children this way, even still today, where it's like you don't get an opinion and you don't have a choice and you don't get you're not allowed to have your thoughts and feelings and things like that. Yeah. And I'm just seeing it's very sad. It's unhelpful, and it's going to create a bunch of adults where I feel like we are right now, where like, how much quote unquote like trauma and things do adults have nowadays because they never understood how to process, how to deal with, because they were just told, suck it up. It's like, you can't be angry. Well, how about I learn to be angry and deal with it? How about I learn to be mad and deal with it? How about I learn to be frustrated and pissed off and deal with it versus shove it down? Because now it's like nobody knows how to do anything.
Yeah. And we know what happens like when you push a beach ball underwater. Eventually it's going to come up. And when you can feel the feelings and manage them and know that there's going to be a lot of failure moving through all the things that we do in life, and we don't make it mean anything about us as a person, it softens that failure to the point where it's much more manageable.
Okay, so I just have to say this because there are so many things about you and I that are so similar, even down to our name, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's wild because I always talk about this thing where I'm like, you can do this and it doesn't mean anything about you.
Yeah. And a lot of times there's tears in those moments because there's a lot of people that are holding on to this I'm not good enough feeling. And it's really sad. And I love the fact that we get to have jobs that help remind people that they are worth it and that they are going to have the skills to work through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that what you're doing now with the teen piece, even, regardless of whether these athletes go on to, and some of them do go on to professional sports and things like that, right? You're helping shift and adjust and change the generations of hopefully changing other generations that are after them that understand like, okay, we are allowed to have big emotions, but with big emotions, I mean, come big responsibility. Like we have to understand. I think that Inside Out was a wickedly wild, smart way to portray emotions, to show people,
so cool.
Visually what and how our body and brain kind of work together or against each other. And at times, how you're talking about, I always talk about the body, the job is to keep us safe, and the brain works constantly to filter things out. And that's something that I'm talking about at the thing that we are both talking about together is body image, and how basically we focus on the negative. So that's all we see, and we get stuck in that cycle of like, kind of like what you were talking about earlier. It's just like, if this is the only thing we're going to focus on, that's the only thing that we're going to get out of it.
Yeah. Our brain automatically goes to the negative 60% of the time. So it's not like we're doing anything wrong when those thoughts come up. And so that's another reason why you continue to have to have self-compassion. We have to learn to be kind to ourselves. And that is not easy because we're all very self-critical naturally. So again, the noticing piece and the steering our brain back in the right direction, because I say, don't believe everything you think. Sometimes our brain offers us crap thoughts. They're not true. They're not within our control. They're not serving us. So being able to recognize that when we're on a track that isn't helpful for us and steering it back in a good direction, the sooner we can do it, the less ability it has to rev.
Yeah.
And when it revs, then we get to that anxiety piece.
Yeah, that's such a good point here. I often talk about the fact it's not about, people think like, oh, you've had your healing journey. It's like, it's a constant journey, right? People just like, in me, for me, in my journey, it's like, oh, you put weight back on, or you did this, or how can you be a coach and look like that? Or you did this. And it's like, whoa. I'm still a human being, number one, at the end of the day. And number two, it's not about the ability to never feel that way. It's not about that I don't ever feel or whatever, that I'm like, oh my God, I could literally take my whole face and shove it in a sour cream and onion bag of potato chips because they're my favorite potato chips ever. Okay. Or a carton of ice cream or whatever. It's not about not having like the thought. Even last night I had a my fat loss basics group coaching call, and we ended up talking about the scale and how we feel like we deserve something from the scale. Like the scale owes us when we do our good deed and track our food and stuff. And I even said, like, I have moments where I still get on the scale and I'm like, I was like, but it's not about the fact that I never feel that way about the scale. It's about what I do on the other side of that feeling. Do I allow it to control me anymore? No. Do I allow it to change how I treat myself? No. Do I allow it to change how I talk about myself? No. Do I allow it to restrict my food now? Like I would be like, oh my gosh, the scale went up. Now I can't eat today or something. Yeah. No. You know, even
because you know your worth no matter what your results are.
Correct. Right.
Which helps you to have clarity about how to move forward with your journey.
Right. And the longer that we stay stuck in that, like you're talking, the longer that engine is revving and taking us down that path, it's not about not having the feelings. It's how fast can I get out of that feeling?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So it's like wild. So this is like, we need to have like a whole day where we just hang out.
I know. Wouldn't that be fun? We do get to have it in a couple weeks.
I know. I'm so excited.
It'll be a fun, busy event, but we'll be able to chat it up there too.
I know. I'm so super excited about this. We've chatted, you and I've chatted before about like this new kind of space. I've not really talked about a lot on my podcast, this new different space that I'm moving in myself, working with teens specifically for strength training and the nutrition side of that. How do you think that being a mom or being a parent, how do you think that your ability to regulate yourself, your ability to have proper nutrition and proper movement, how do you think that translates in your home to your children? Like, what do you see from the teen side perspective versus like maybe a parent's perspective?
Mine might be different than general, but I would hope that the way I look at things is like, we have so many awesome coaches out there now that we don't have to reinvent the wheel in areas that we aren't an expert. So like for my teens, I would love to have them sign up in a strength and nutrition program with you because like I have a parent coach, I have a performance coach, I have a business coach that I don't know what I would do without all my coaches. And I want to offer that to my kids too. Just being able to have the support and, you know, in a sense, like you've done all the work, you're going to be able to give them shortcuts to them gaining success. So like if I could get a coach for every topic that I know would be helpful for all my kids and myself, I would. So yeah, I just love what you do.
Yeah. Thank you. Same. I think it's super important. You know, and I even see, like, I talk a lot about my kids on my podcast. My daughter's been on my podcast before, and, you know, she's a swimmer and she does live in like this very negative kind of headspace where she's like, all the girls are better than me, you know. And the cool thing about it was last week there was, they redid a test set. So they did some training, from where they did their tryouts. And, you know, the coach pulled her aside and he was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like over the last 3.5 weeks, you've improved the most out of anybody on the team in the last 3 weeks, you know? And so he's like, make sure, you know, you stay in the gym, make sure like you're keep on the nutrition that you're doing and all the things. And so she had gone into that moment going, I'm going to gain all this time. I'm going to be so slow. I'm really tired. My body's achy, all this stuff. I was like, well, our mindset around how we go into something is going to be what ends up happening. Like, if we have a bad mindset or a negative headspace, or we don't think we're going to do well, or we think that we're going to do and gain all this time, the likelihood of that happening again, where we put our focus, is going to be greater because that's what we think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. My gymnasts that fall off the beam, what's the last thing you were thinking before you fell? And it was, don't fall off the beam.
Oof.
So it's like thought, feeling, experience.
Oh, and it's so applicable in all areas of life, whether you're a teen or a 45-year-old woman or a 75-year-old, you know, it's like so applicable. Like what you do is so across the board for everybody. It's wild.
It is across the board. I work with women in business. I work with men. I work with, like I said, people that are blue collar workers all the way up to big wigs at big corporations. And the facts remain the same. Self-worth, stress relief, in my opinion, are the two most important things. There's a lot of in between where we can work on focus and motivation and pressured thinking and how to work through those things too. But in my experience, it's self-confidence and stress relief paired is game changer.
Yeah. And I think that's a great testament to it doesn't matter who you are, or where you come from, right? You just pointed that out. Like whether you're a Walmart grocery getter, and you're picking up the carts, or you're bagging the groceries, or you're doing, I don't know what they just still did at Walmart, but I mean, whatever, right? Or you're a high level executive, or you're male, or you're female, or you're 22, or you're 45. Like it doesn't matter. We are not exempt from these things that happen to us on the daily.
Exactly. And I work with a lot of travel baseball teams, 8U, 10U, 12U, 14U. And as we know, there's lots of hormones for girls and boys going through all of those age groups. So being able to, it's a conversation that even young men are having now, which I love, because you don't always want to go to your coach and say, I'm scared. I'm scared of failing. I'm scared of getting hit by the ball. That's not always a conversation that's super comfy, because we want to be tough. Sometimes the boys want to be tough for their parents and their coaches. So it really is like a nice bridge between parents and coaches when the kiddos have a safe space to talk about what they're scared of.
Yeah. And it's important because it allows us then to understand like the communication piece, how important it is. Like, it's okay to say how you feel. Like I think that's a part of it, is communication is like a huge piece of being able to move through that when icky things come up and it gets heavy, Yeah.
And like not even really knowing what was going on until you kind of go through a series of questions. I love self-rating scales. So like, what does your confidence level feel like when things are going well? It feels about an 8. What does it feel like when you make an error or things don't go well? It goes down to about a 2. Okay. So I would definitely focus on confidence if they said that focus was, I'm always focused, I'm always a 10. So we know that when the errors are made, now how do we fill the gap? How do we need to build the stress relief tool for the confidence and worth to feel like it's staying high, even when all the external circumstances are affecting how we feel about ourselves?
Yeah.
So,
it's so wild how it's all the same.
It is. I feel like we have so many parallels in what we talk about and what we do.
Yeah. I love it.
That we definitely have to do a program together sometime.
I know. Yes, we need to collab. Absolutely. This has got to happen. Where can my listeners find you if they want some more information about, I'm going to link everything in the show notes, obviously, but where can they find you?
Absolutely. My website is sarahjanemindsetcoaching.com. So SARAH Jane mindsetcoaching.com. I'm at Sarah Jane Mindset on Instagram and Sarah Jane Mindset Coaching on my Facebook business page. I do a free discovery call as an intake to get to know people and their families. So kiddos can come on with their parents as we get to know each other, and they can talk about what's going on in their world, and we can kind of come up with a custom plan to get started on working together.
Yeah, I love that. Also, when we first met, I was like, Sarah with an H or without an H? And that was like, are we going to be friends or not? And it was absolutely a match made in heaven. So
wait, are we both Leos? I forget. Are we both Leos?
I'm a Virgo. I just had a birthday.
We get along. We get along.
Yes. Yes. So, all right. So I'm going to link everything in the show notes, you guys. I hope your takeaway here, is the fact that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. It's all the same, and it's all the same work that has to be done. And the accountability piece is where most people get it wrong. I feel like nobody wants to be accountable because that's ick and it's hard. And then you're like held to a standard of like excellence. And that's just part of the process, So on that note, you guys, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks so much for listening today. If you laughed, learned, or just felt a vibe, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps this ass train chugging along. If you're ready to embrace the basics with the twist, follow me on social media. Links are in the show notes, and let's see the ways we can work together. All right, basics bitches, you're not just listeners, you're part of the revolution. Remember, skinny's out, basics are in, and you're looking damn good doing it. So until next time, stay basic.